Ombudsman for Banking Services has received a record number of complaints about banks. Internet banking fraud cases are the biggest contributor. The Ombudsman says internet fraud cases accounted for 19% of total complaints received in the period, and this is a 6% increase from 2020. The numbers then dropped to a record low of about 13%. Standard Bank topped the list with the cases opened for the year, followed by Capitec, FNB, Nedbank and Absa. FNB saw a 34% decrease in complaints. Let's talk more about this now with Reana Steyn, who is the Ombudsman for Banking Services. Thank you very much for your time this evening, Reana. Thank you. Let's start with some of the key statistics that came out of this report that you've just recently published, and really the trend that it's showing between banks and the customers that they have, the relationship there.
Yes, so as you've mentioned already, we saw quite a big increase. Not only in the formal complaints that we opened, which was the 7% you mentioned, but just from 2 years ago, that's 28% increase. And we can speculate on the reasons for this. I think COVID and financial stresses had something to do with it. More people moving online, and especially maybe some people are not used to using those platforms. But also maybe awareness that there is an ombudsman that they can complain. So I think it's a combination. So we're not necessarily unhappy with an increase, especially if it means that more people know that they have rights and that they have got recourse. We also, we also assisted about 10,000 consumers to refer their matters to the banks where they were not, they didn't complain to the bank in the first instance. So that's also quite a big increase there. We saw an increase in the calls. Our call center assisted a lot of people just with information. So overall increases, but as I say, not a bad thing. We recovered about 19.4 million for consumers. Also quite a nice sum of money that if it wasn't for our intervention, the consumers would not have had that money back.
No, absolutely. What does it say about the general performance of banks in South Africa and really the services that they're giving to South African consumers?
Well, I mean, I think you have to also see it in context. So as you see in our report, we opened 8,500 cases. If you sort of compare that to the volumes of accounts in the country and number of transactions, it's not even a drop. So it doesn't necessarily mean that the service is all bad, that our banks are not giving good service. It does mean that in some instances, is certainly these 8,500 cases that I received, the people were unhappy. They were not happy. The customers were not happy. But in many of those cases, then we found in favor of the bank after doing a full investigation through my legal team. So it doesn't mean it's all bad, but it means that they sometimes get it wrong, but then there is a checks and balances in place. And I think that is the message.
What did you find about the way in which they are navigating dealing with vulnerable customers, the more elderly customers, and just making sure that the service is as efficient as it can be when it comes to that cohort of customers?
I think that's still something in progress. So we have started a project where we are alerting the banks if we realize that we're dealing with a vulnerable customer. And we're talking about somebody who's elderly, but not just their age. Some people who are in their 60s and even 70s and 80s, they know exactly what they're doing. They can, navigate the internet. So that doesn't mean they're vulnerable. But we also find some people, they really don't understand. They had no idea what the product was all about or the service. And those people we then flag and we then raise it with the banks. And we have seen that they are really trying to assist those customers if we highlight to them that the customer is vulnerable. I think from their side, they've now also put measures in place to sort of try and identify these customers and assist them. But I think that is still, there's a lot of work to be done. But at least if we can recognize every customer that's vulnerable and we highlight it to the bank, that I see. I think that is certainly going to help.